Good morning, folks. It is Coach Jessica, and just coming to you live this morning. If you happen to be up and available, and you see the notification that I'm live, feel free to comment. I'll respond to those. I don't have planned times or days that I go live. I just do whenever I think I have something to say to you guys that are in between our Zooms that we have on Sundays. And so we had some last minute additions to the group, which is awesome yesterday, but finally we have everybody in. Everybody's accepted their invites, and we are all here together in the group. Please make sure that you go and watch the welcome video. It's really important because I explain about the group, how to use it, how to navigate it, and if you are new here, you really do need that, even if you've done groups with me before, because this is different. But anyway, just really glad that we've got our group together and going, and everybody's here now. Today I want to talk about identifying your specific disorder. I think, I've been at this for a long time, working with people with eating disorders of all kinds, and in the past, I would say there's a couple things I missed the mark on, and I am not too proud to say that. And I think I can say it because as I continue on my own journey, coming up on 7 years, I continue to evolve. I continue to understand more facets of this thing that we deal with, these eating disorders. And so I know that in the past there's sort of been a blanket scenario that I have put forth in past agendas and groups that I did with another coach, and even somewhat here, on how to treat eating disorders, a 4-step process. But the longer that I'm in that, I'm realizing it is really, really important, because some things are global, some steps to the process of healing are global, and then there are things that we need to do differently based on the type of disorder we have. Now, you may have never considered the way you eat an eating disorder, so I'm going to start off by talking about that. How do you know it's an eating disorder? Well, you know what? You're in a group. You signed up for a group for emotional and compulsive eating. Both of those things are disordered. You realize that you eat in response to emotion, or you feel like you must eat, that's compulsive. That's not normal, right? A disorder is something that's out of order from what is normal in life. Maybe you're someone who looks around and you realize you don't respond to food the same way other people do. And I think there is something in you that does realize it's disordered, but you may have never ever considered this is legitimately an eating disorder. And, eating disorders can be mild, they can be, all consuming, but anywhere on that spectrum, it's still something that's out of order in your life. And a lot of times when you have a disordered eating pattern, it takes up an extraordinary amount of time in your life. We're going to talk about strongholds, and that word that you see at the top of the page as the header, and the definition of a stronghold. We're going to talk a lot about that on Sunday, so I'm not going to get into that today. But at some point, food has become a stronghold in your life because it is disordered. It takes up too much space. Food, ultimately, freedom looks like food's in the background of your life, and you are free to live your life, which is really what we're seeking here, freedom. But today I just want to take a few minutes and go through the different types of disorders. One of the things I can tell you from my own history, I'm 48 years old, and I really fought through eating disorders for 41 years, and then I've been healing over the past 7 years. But eating disorders can morph. They can start as one thing and they can morph into something else, and then you can go back and do that other thing. I found that there were times I struggled with anorexia. My main disorder over the years was bulimia. For decades, bulimia, and binge eating, and then compulsive and emotional eating. And so I want to go through each one of those today because I want you to start to think about what your biggest issue is, because how we solve that will be different according to what your specific issue is. So you may have some history of one, and now you're struggling with another because it's sort of morphed or evolved. But let's just start with anorexia. I know most people hear that word and they think skinny. And so sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. To be clinically diagnosed with anorexia, you have to be 20% below your lowest ideal body weight and have behaviors of starvation. What I have learned, and I think this is talked about a little bit but not a lot, what I have learned over the years is you can have what they call atypical anorexia. You can have some anorexic behaviors and you can have anorexic mentality and not actually have that severe low body weight. You can eat very, very little in an attempt to control. You can have periods of starvation and still be heavy. So anorexia is where you typically don't eat for periods of time. Do not mix this up with fasting. I will talk about fasting at another time. But it is where you do not eat for periods of time, but really it's about punishing yourself. It's to harm yourself. It's a self-inflicted thing. The thing I'm going to say about anorexia, and if you don't have it, you won't understand what I'm saying, but if you do or if you struggle with it, you will. Anorexia makes you feel powerful. When you haven't eaten and then you feel that hunger pain, it actually makes you feel superior. It makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel more in control than other people. It almost can give you a superiority complex. So anorexia is a powerful thing, and it's hard to quit. It can really get a grip on you. And we have had people in our groups in the past that have really struggled with anorexia, and maybe one or two in this particular group who have that in their history. And just know, if you have that in your history, your eating disorder might have morphed into something else by this point. As I said, bulimia is the next thing I'm going to talk about, and I think it is a really misunderstood eating disorder. Sometimes I think it's the loneliest eating disorder because there's so much shame attached to purging. So people think of bulimia, they automatically think of eating and throwing up. One of the things about bulimia that's really tough is people who have bulimia normally have a normal body weight or sometimes slightly overweight. So you may be suffering, you're inflicting horrific damage on your body, you're dealing with horrible emotional issues because you're binging and purging in some way, and people don't see you as sick. With anorexia, they see a person who's clearly emaciated and that there's a problem, and they get them treatment, and they get them in a hospital. If you have struggled with bulimia or you are struggling with bulimia, it's hard because you feel like a fraud all the time. You present a semi-healthy looking person to the world, but behind closed doors you're doing these things that you feel are just really depraved and sick. And the reason I say that it's also misunderstood is because you can have bulimic activities, you can be in a bulimic mindset and not ever make yourself throw up. And this is huge. Some people are like, oh no, I don't have bulimia, and then I ask a few more questions and they literally do. So bulimia is anything you do to try to undo an eating event that you had, right? So that can be making yourself purge, or it can be taking laxatives, it can be taking diuretics, it can be over-exercise. It can be a 3-day fast to try to undo a binge. Anything in your mind that you're doing to try to mitigate an eating event that you had like that is bulimic behavior. So I want you to be aware of that, and that might be a moment for you to just realize that you actually do struggle with the disorder of bulimia. The next thing I'm going to talk about is binge eating disorder. And this is something, again, it's talked about a little bit now. It wasn't back when I was first in treatment, when I was 16, 17 years old. People didn't talk about binge eating disorder as one of them. But it is recognized now that it is a thing. Binge eating disorder, again, the eating disorder community defines it as consuming a huge amount of calories in a short period of time. But I have found that isn't necessarily true. And it literally, binge eating is eating so much food at a rapid pace that you eat until it hurts. It literally, it actually causes you pain. You can't stuff down anymore. but it doesn't have to be a huge amount of calories. I once had a client who would binge eat. She was very, very thin, but she struggled with binge eating disorder, and she would eat like 12 cucumbers, right? Because they're very low calorie, but she would stuff in a quick, like a frenzied sort of fashion. She would eat, and she would eat so much that it would hurt her terribly. And she wasn't a purger, she was a binge eater. So eating like at that quick pace, and we eat it at a quick pace because I think we really don't register fullness for about 20 minutes, and I think you learn to eat at that quick pace because you can get as much in as possible before that little bit of fullness kicks in. But boy, when it does and you have binged, it hurts. It physically hurts your body. You may be like me. I was a full-on binger at one point. My high weight was 309 pounds. At that point, I was binging. I was still purging, but I would purge so I could binge more at that point. And I consumed, probably, if I were to guess, I would say there was times I consumed maybe 10,000 calories. I know that sounds crazy, but legit, I'm not going to name the stuff I used to eat, but if you look at it, it's not a stretch at all. It was like a bottomless pit, but I would eat until I was in terrible pain, and then I would still be sad that all the food was gone. So that's binge eating disorder. And so then I want to talk about the two types of disordered eating that people really don't talk about much. I've sort of like stirred this up in the community a little bit, and there's a few people out there talking about it now, but I really think that these two things are so common that we accept them and we don't see that they're disordered because so many people struggle with them. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is emotional eating or emotional overeating. When your eating is triggered by an emotional need, meaning you are tired, sad, lonely, bored, angry, you don't have a nutritional need. You don't need food. Food isn't going to fix your problem, but you feel like you need to eat. That's emotional eating disorder. And, society accepts this. In fact, I see commercials all the time that actually point you towards it, right? They'll say, are you feeling grumpy? Well, go eat a candy bar. There's literally commercials that say that. And it's basically the problem with emotional eating is that we become dependent on that food because we start to believe a lie, and that's where a stronghold attaches, that this food is going to solve my emotional problem. The problem with emotional eating is it gives you a temporary numbing factor. It takes the edge off the emotion that you're feeling. It stuffs down the feeling, but here's the issue. It rises back up. You still have to deal with that problem you have because the food didn't really fix it. And then you have to deal with the problems that the food itself created, like weight gain, like feeling condemnation, like feeling secretive and gross because you know that you've eaten. And so often emotional eating is done in secret, in the car, after people leave the house, late at night, eating something out of the pantry or the refrigerator. Emotional eating tends to be a secretive process too. So that's emotional eating, and it is disordered. It is, I don't care how normal people try to make it, it's still disordered and it's harmful to you. Food is for nutrition. It's meant to be enjoyed. I hate when people say, they make this statement, food is just fuel. That's not true. Food is meant to be enjoyed. We're created with all these amazing taste buds. We are meant to enjoy our food, but we're not meant to use it to solve emotional problems. So emotional eating, and again, some people struggle with that to a small degree, some people struggle with it to a great degree, but in any case, it was the avenue where food became a stronghold in your life. The last one I'm going to talk about is compulsive eating. And you really can't treat compulsive eating the same as emotional eating. The solution is not the same. So compulsive eating is when your eating is so tied to a specific time, place, event, activity, a person. So for example, if there's a specific time of day that your brain triggers you to eat, and I'm not denying that you don't feel hungry. What I'm telling you is there is no nutritional need. You don't need food. So if there's a certain time of day that your brain is saying, feed me, you got to eat right now, that's compulsive. It's not driven by a need for food, a nutritional need. It's that you feel like you must eat. Another example is, again, some people, when they get in their car, they feel like, oh, it's a trigger, it's a danger zone for them to get in their car, because so often they've secretly eaten in the car. So they get in the car, even if they've already eaten, they'll feel this compulsion to eat or to go to a fast food restaurant. In front of the TV at night is another example. Maybe you've eaten plenty of food. You know you're full for the day. You know you've had it. You know you've had enough food, but yet you feel this strong compulsion. Your stomach will even growl and to alert you to the fact that, hey, this is when you normally eat. That does not mean that is legitimate hunger. It is a compulsion. Again, you can eat at a restaurant and then go to the movie theater and feel compelled, like you must eat popcorn because you have done that so many times. So a compulsion is generally created by a repeated behavior, a food behavior that is so tethered to an activity, it's so attached to an activity that it's really hard for you to do that activity and not eat. It can even be attached to a person. If you have always eaten with a specific person and then you're trying to not eat in response to compulsion or emotion, you're trying to just eat nourishing foods when you're actually hungry, or you've committed to eating 2 or 3 meals a day or whatever it is, when you get around that person, suddenly you start to feel, you think you're hungry, your stomach will growl, you have the compulsion to eat. And just to tie into compulsive eating is compulsive overeating. Compulsive overeating is when I start to eat and I can't stop. Once I start eating, I have to keep on eating more and more and more and more and more. So it's a different variation of compulsive eating. And I want to say this because I feel like I need to be a voice for people who have changed your diet. There are a bunch of big name people. Some of them are even doctors who say, once you take the carbs out of your diet, once you go carnivore, once you go keto, you're not going to struggle with compulsive eating. You can't overeat meat. And I'm here to say lies. I want to speak up for you, and I want to acknowledge you right now. If you struggle with binge eating, compulsive eating, bulimia, compulsive overeating, you absolutely can overeat anything. Like I referred to the client who overate cucumbers. Cucumbers are technically carbs, but I mean, I can binge eat meat, no problem. I can compulsively overeat meat. And lots of you can too, and you may feel frustrated because people that are screaming about this on social media, I see these Instagram accounts where they're like, if you just remove the carbs, that fixes everything. You can't overeat meat, and I'm here to say you absolutely can. So there is a deeper need. There's a bigger problem that needs to be solved, and that's what I'm here to help you through. Because again, you might be eating only healthy foods and you're gaining weight and you still feel out of control and you're still struggling. I want to acknowledge you right now. So I want you to take some time and just think about yourself. The other thing I want to encourage you to do, because I know I keep saying this, sharing is huge. And there have been some posts on this page I am so proud of. Those of you who are opening up and you're really sharing the deepest details of your life and what you have been introspective about, what may have led to your eating and what your eating history is. Thank you for that. It opens the door for other people to do the same. If you haven't shared your story yet, yes, I am pushing you to do that. And the reason I'm pushing it on you is because it is for your own good. It is for your good. It's not just because I want to know everything about you. You putting yourself out there just takes the shame away. Shame just thrives when we keep it to ourselves. It just thrives when we keep it to ourselves. So if you will put yourself out there and be open about, the things that you've done, I'm telling you right now, there is nothing that you could say that would make me raise an eyebrow. There's nothing you could say that would shock me. I have done it all. I've struggled with all the eating disorders. I've done disgusting, gross things behind closed doors, and I will talk about all of them. Not to gross you out, but because I want to take the shame off of it. And so there's nothing you can say that anybody is going to be repelled by or that will make them think less of you. And so I encourage you to share that. As you do that, think about your history with food and disordered eating. When did it start? Did it start as one thing? Has it morphed into something else? Think about what your biggest issue is. And understand also you may have a combination of issues. You might primarily be compulsive and a little bit of emotional eating, or you might be mostly an emotional eater and then sometimes struggle with bulimia, because once you realize you've given in and emotionally eaten, you try to do something to undo that, which is bulimia. So it's important for you to know what your issue is so we know how to treat it, how to move forward, how to address that behavior. So I hope that this makes you think. I hope it gives you some clarity. Again, I'm so glad all of you are here. Please go through and look at the journal questions. Get something, write them down, spend some time, answer them. Take a look at the days and times of our live Zoom meetings. Take a look at our November top tips for success and watch every video and commit to that. Definitely watch the welcome video because I point you towards how to navigate the group. Also know you can ask as many questions as you want to here in the group about anything. It can be about nutrition, it can be about eating disorders, it can be about hair and makeup. I don't care. You can ask me anything that I have any knowledge of, and I am happy to impart that to you. I love answering questions. So make use of this group. I'm glad you're here. You're in the right place. It was a great first step and a good indication that you're willing and ready to heal. The last thing before I go, I'm going to say this. In my experience, people who sign up for a November group have the greatest success out of any group of people I've ever seen. And you know the reason for that? Most of the world is thinking, I'm going to start in January. But if you've gotten to a place where you're like, you know what, I'm willing to make a change in spite of the fact that we have the biggest food holidays of the year coming and all these parties, your mind is in a place where you are ready to receive and you're ready to move forward. So I'm really excited. This group's going to be incredibly blessed. This is a month for breakthrough. Breakthrough is our theme for the month, along with gratitude. Okay, have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye. Oh, wait, I just saw I had a couple of people live. I'm sorry. I said I would acknowledge you, and then I didn't. Jill, hey. Nagme, hey. I am so happy to see both of you. I have missed y'all. It's been a really, really long time. I'm glad you're here. Any questions for me since you're on live this morning? You want to throw something at me? Go ahead. I hear you. If not, I'm going to sign off. But anyway, just really, again, thankful and grateful that you're here today. Talk to y'all soon.